Hello, welcome back. Sorry it's been forever and a day since I have done one of these videos. I have been getting very busy at work because people are taking time off, and that means I have been bumped up in priority for time and hours at work. So yeah, it's been a very busy couple of weeks. Also, as you may have noticed in my social media accounts, I have had to rearrange my review order. I was supposed to be doing a New Spring by Robert Jordan. However, due to reasons being that it would have not really made sense for me to review the Wheel of Time series, which I am doing over the course of the next few months, I'll be doing all the Wheel of Time books. But New Spring, even though it is chronologically the first book, technically not part of the series, it is actually a prologue to the main Wheel of Time series. It really does make sense to start with books 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, and then come back to New Spring for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into when I eventually do that review. Anywho, today we are reviewing Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, the Madman. Why do I call him a madman? Because he writes like crazy. He pretty much puts out like a book a year, and if you have not seen his books are thick. And that is very much impressive. Anyway, Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, or as it's more appropriately known as, The Final Empire. And this is something that's confusing to me. On the cover, it does not say Final Empire at all. Even though that's technically the appropriate name, it's not on there. And I'm not sure why that is. I heard it's a marketing thing, because this was originally written as an adult fantasy, but now it is being more marketed as a young adult fantasy, or YA, so yes, there's that. Anyway, on with the review. A quick synopsis. This story is about Vin. Vin is a 16-year-old street urchin and thief who is a part of a criminal gang. Vin has a special ability that she calls her luck, in which she's able to subtly manipulate people's emotions. On a particular mission with this criminal gang, she is found out. People notice that their emotions are being tampered with. And on the way back to her criminal hideout, a couple of men notice her. These men are Kelsier and Doxson. They are the leader and right-hand man of another thieving group, and they essentially want to recruit her. She meets with them, and when she goes back to her original gang, they're dead. Yep, things escalate pretty quickly. Anyway, so she joins Kelsier and Doxson in their group, and then they find out that they have the very amazing and fun task of overthrowing the Emperor and his government. This thieving group, they're just thieves. They're going to attempt to do the impossible, take down a god. These people in this world consider the Lord Ruler, who is the Emperor, a god, an immortal. They're going to take him down. So the rest of this book follows Vin as she and the rest of her group try to systematically make it so it's possible to overthrow the Empire and the Lord Ruler, and if possible, kill the Lord Ruler. Some of the things I highly enjoyed about this book are the characters. The characters are clear and distinct. Each one has their own person, which I find very cool. Van is very shy, and she comes from a very troubled background. She's physically and emotionally and probably mentally abused by her brother and the leader of her original gang and all the gangs that she's been associated with. She is a 16-year-old female in this world dominated by men. You can connect the dots and see why a 16-year-old female might have some scarring. But throughout the story, she comes into her own. She slowly starts trusting and believing in people. And that's one of the beautiful parts about the story. It's realistic. It's not, okay, I trust you guys now. It starts slow and it slowly builds over not just the book, but the entire trilogy. Then we have Kelsier. Kelsier is pretty cool. He's a legendary thief who on a particular mission gets caught and thrown into the pits of Hathsin, which is a very infamous, it's not a prison, it's kind of like a penal colony. So in this particular location, the convicts have to find a metal called atium. Sorry, the cat's being annoying again. Cat, go. Go play. While he's distracted, so these convicts have to find atium within a week. If they don't, they're killed. If they do find it, very good job. Live another week, and then your week starts over. You have another week to find another nugget of atium. If you don't, you're killed. So on and so forth. Kelsier escapes the pits of Hathsin, and he is known as the Survivor. He's a very legendary person because of that fact. People don't know that Kelsier is the Survivor, but they know of the Survivor. The Survivor is a very legendary character among the Ska. The Ska is the peasant slave class of this particular society. We also have Sazed. Sazed is a keeper. The people who are the keepers are a particular sect of people who, for all intents and purposes, their sole job is to remember everything. Religions, politics, histories, plants, animals, anything and everything. Everybody, not all of them remember everything. They do tend to have specialties. For example, Sazed's is religions. When we first meet him, he has remembered or studied over 320 religions, many of whom are now dead because the Lord Ruler doesn't want a religion competing with his own where he is God. But yeah, Sazed is actually my favorite character. He's a wizened, you can think of him as a wizened scholar. Very slow to speak, very smart, and very contemplative. He takes his time and he speaks, not with authority isn't what I'm trying to say. He speaks, when he speaks, you know that's what he means. And they have a lot of the minor characters. We have Breeze, who is one of the more funny secondary characters in this book, and again in the entire series. He comes off as someone who, he's not an aristocrat, but he wants to be an aristocrat. You kind of get that sense. He dresses like an aristocrat, and when you're reading his words, you can almost see like there's a very pompous person trying to talk. At least I can. Then we have Ham. Ham is a soldier type person. However, he likes to get into philosophical debates. He'll get into these conversations with other members of the crew and have these deep discussions, which is kind of annoying to the rest of the crew members, which is pretty funny. And you also have Spook. Spook is kind of like a quiet, reserved young kid when we first meet him. And he eventually becomes into a very prominent role later on in the series. And you have many other characters. I can't get into them all, but they're all distinct and unique, which I find highly enjoyable. Then we have the world. The world that we're discovering throughout these series, especially this book, is really interesting. So as I mentioned before, we have the Empire, which is ruled over by the Lord Ruler. He came into power about 1,000 years ago. And ever since he took over, things have not gone for the best. The world has become a very barren, ashen-filled place. Ash falls from the sky. Plants are now brown. Trees are brown. The sky is gloomy. The sun's red. All these things that don't point to things going as well as they could. There's one point where Kelsier has this picture of, as we know it, a regular flower. Green stem, leaves, and I think it's blue. The petals are. Yeah, the petals are blue, I believe. And people's like, what's that? That's not a plant. Plants are brown. Then you have the political structure. We have very much a caste system. So we have, the head, the Lord Ruler, the Emperor, and below him we have the nobles. The nobles are essentially descendants of people who were the friends of the Emperor when he first, or the Lord Ruler when he first came into power. The nobles are those descendants, and way below them, and way below them, we have the Ska. As I mentioned earlier, the Ska is the peasant or slave class. They work the fields, they do the menial tasks. They're the ones people kill or get rid of, and no one bats an eye. Cat, go play. Yeah. On that bed. Ooh. I'll play that one. Moving on. Then we have the magic systems. This book primarily deals with one called Allomancy. However, there are several others, or two others, in the series. So Allomancy is not everyone can use Allomancy. Allomancy is primarily set aside for the nobles. The Ska aren't supposed to have access to this. However, some of the nobles tend to get frisky, and then they sleep with a Ska, and then chances are you might end up with an Allomancer. So there's a couple different types of Allomancers. There's the Mistings. Mistings are people who are powerful in one metal type only. For example, if you're powerful in just tin, you're able to heighten your five senses. If you're powerful in pewter, you're able to become more physically strong. And there are other examples. I won't get into them right now, but I highly recommend you read the book and find out what those are. So the Allomancy, you ingest these metals, usually in the means of a, a tincture. So you have this alcoholic solution with these metal particles in them, and then you drink it, and you have access to those particular metals. So I discussed mistings, and then if you're able to use all abilities, you're known as a Mistborn. So if you can use tin and bronze and pewter and the rest of the metals, you're called a Mistborn. Not nearly as common, in fact it's pretty rare compared to mistings. A lot of mistings, not very many Mistborns. And I'll get more into the other magic systems when I review the other books, but there's also Ferrochemy, which is involving storing physical attributes inside metals, such as you can store memories, you can store strength, speed, eyesight, hearing, things like that. You can store a whole bunch of it over time and then access it and do a whole lot of it in a short period of time, or you can just heighten things over a long period of time a little bit, if that makes sense. And finally, we have probably the coolest of the different metal or different magic systems, Hemalurgy, which is involving sticking spikes to people. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's really cool. Very graphic, but very cool. And the next thing I highly enjoyed about this book is at the beginning of each chapter, there's a little one paragraph, usually about a paragraph blurb. Pay attention to that. It all makes sense at the end of the book. And luckily, all three books have this. But if you pay attention in the beginning, you kind of pick up and okay, that's what it is. And you can look forward to it in books 2 and 3. But pay attention. It does definitely tie in throughout the book. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but it took me until the end to realize what it was. I mean, I read it, I thought it was pretty cool, but I had no idea what it was. And when I found out, oh my goodness, head blown, it's really cool. And one of the final things, or the final thing that this book really stood out to me about is how easy it is to read. It's very accessible. I mean, I find it more accessible than Harry Potter. Definitely more accessible than Lord of the Rings, more accessible than Wheel of Time, and all these other big names in the fantasy genre. It is very easy to read, and I find that so refreshing. But especially when you're reading something like Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, where it's not Old English, but it's a older version of English where it's very prim and proper. With Mistborn, it's just like, it's very conversational English. It's so refreshing and so easy. Anybody can pick this up. Like I said, it's being marketed as YA now. So young people can read this too, which is so cool. And pretty much that's the only I can't even think of any negatives, really. I mean, I'm trying to dig and nitpick, but I can't really think of anything. It's ow, cat again. I like I'm saying, I'm trying to nitpick, and I can't really find anything that I did not like. I mean, there's a little bit of romance, which, hey, I'll probably say that I don't mind a little bit of romance. God! I don't mind a little bit of romance. I'll proudly say that. I just don't want a Harlequin romance. Don't need that. Not at all. The characters are well realized. The plot's interesting. So, I mean, okay, I guess that's the one negative you could say. The plot is... God, stop, please. Go. Come on. Alright, the cows come up, so we have a visitor. Again, that's Binx. Hey. Okay, where was I? Yeah, the one negative I can say is it kind of follows the structure of a heist book. So, I mean, it's not the most unique thing. There is a bad guy, the Lord Ruler, and you're pretty much trying to topple the Lord Ruler, topple the bad guy. So, I mean, it's not the most unique thing in the world, but I find it refreshing enough and interesting enough that I can easily overlook that. Like I said, I couldn't really think of that until just now. And I'm spending a few days thinking about that. I had a cat butt in my face. Lovely. So if I were to give Mistborn, The Final Empire a rating, definitely a 9. Easy. Without a doubt. This is my favorite book that I've read so far this year. It's something I probably will end up picking up later on this year again. And probably listening to an audiobook while I'm reading something else. I listened to it while I'm driving. It was so good, so refreshing. Kind of short. It's 600 something pages. Which actually leads me to another cool thing that I just remembered. Brandon Sanderson breaks up his chapters so they're pretty short. You guys remember reading the book in like 60 something pages, and it's a 600 something page book. So those are pretty short chapters, I think. I've read some books where it's like 20, 30 plus pages between chapters, which isn't a bad thing, but can take a while. Like, I like to stop at chapters. Just, I don't know why, it's just my thing. But when you have to read all of that just get to the next chapter, it's kind of annoying. Not the case with The Final Empire. So, yeah, read it. It's good. And if you want to get hooked into Brandon Sanderson's universe, the Cosmere, I would definitely say Mistborn is the perfect place to start. It's easy to get invested in, and I couldn't put it down. I loved it. So, have a great day. If you have not already, please like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You don't really have to, but it does help out. And I will see you guys again later, hopefully this week, where I'll be reviewing The Well of Ascension, which is Book 2, Mistborn Era 1. Ciao.